Daith da, Obi Nakan. Welcome to podcast number 163. Another week has flown by and the days are getting shorter. I tell you what, we go out running in the woods in the morning with the dogs and walking them in the evening. And we're doing it in pitch black now. We got our head torches on, and 'tis only going to get worse, isn't it, for the next couple of months or so. But since I spoke to you last time, things have gone a little bit more hectic, put it that way. I know that we had such a quiet time a couple of months ago, which I should have enjoyed, but like I've been working on adrenaline and you just couldn't seem to relax. But this week, 'twas back to normal. So I think last time I spoke to you was Thursday evening. So Friday, our limo was out on hire for another funeral director again. And then Eric from Bodmin, we had his service in the afternoon at Glyn Valley, which was a lovely service, I must admit. And then on to Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, we was out again, second time in just over a week. Now, this was thanks to Michelle. Now, Michelle is a regular listener to the podcast, and dear of her, she gave us a voucher. Well, it was just over a year ago, and it took us this long to use it. And it was for one of the restaurants here in Wadebridge. So me and Beth, we was out in the evening on Saturday, and it was fantastic. I had a very enjoyable time. And also, it was lovely to see so many familiar faces there as well, I must admit. And then Sunday, we was pumpkin picking with the grandchildren up Trevathan. So if you don't know where Trevathan is, I'll give you a clue. We spend a lot of our time up there at the minute, Sundendelian. And we went with James and Gemma and the boys, and it was brilliant. We had a lovely selection of pumpkins, I tell you, right from little ones the size of tennis balls up to ones the size of footballs. So, yeah, that was a lovely day, a nice break, bit of paperwork over the weekend, and then back to reality on Monday, and was flat out. So the first funeral of the day, we got absolutely soaked. I always say I don't mind getting wet as long as 'tis the last funeral of the day, but there's nothing worse than getting wet on the first funeral of the day. But 'twas for Jeff's funeral, and 'twas lovely in a way that we could have a proper funeral. And what I mean by that is that when Jeff's wife passed away just a few years ago, 'twas while COVID was on and we still had the restrictions. So you couldn't have, the number of people there that you wanted. So, yeah, it was lovely for Jeff. We had a proper funeral. It was a good local St. Morgan funeral. The family walking to the church, and then we all walked up to the cemetery afterwards, which is when the rain started. And I must say, I'd rather walk up that hill than cycle it. We've cycled it a few times, and 'tis a lot better to walk up it, I tell you. But, yeah, so that went really well. And then back, we didn't have a lot of time in between, really. And then we had Murrow's funeral in the afternoon there. You guessed where we was, Sundendelian. And I was going to say, until I'm going to hesitate now, because we was in church today and our dear friend Madge was there, and her and Steve, they always laugh. They said, because whenever I'm talking about anybody, they say, cool, I've known them for years. I've known them all my life. And I'm right. And actually, sometimes when I'm saying it, I'm thinking, oh, crumbs, you've said that again. So I'm going to have to try and alter that somehow. But, yeah, they're right. I suppose it's the trouble. Well, it's not the trouble. It's a lovely thing of actually being born and, growing up in the town, living here all my life. You just get to know so many people that have always been around. So, yeah, Merle, I've known her for ages. And it was lovely again. They're at Indelian, I must admit, a wonderful crowd. And we stayed dry, which was brilliant. And apart from that, we had one of our bearers was out on hire. And then I usually like to relax a bit if I can in the evening, but we had the local meeting. I'm one of the trustees on the ambulance hall committee down there, down Fair Park Road. So we had our meeting there. The ambulance hall, obviously it was built by St. John members years ago. I might have told you about this. And then when St. John closed, because the trust has got it, the money, the building didn't go to St. John, so it's kept here. It's run as a not-for-profit, hall. Any money, it just gets ploughed back in for the upkeep. And it's so busy. Loads of people rent it out for different functions. And something that's become more popular is children's birthdays parties now being used for that. So if you want to get in touch, if anybody wants to hire the hall, 'tis all on one level, and it's good for the town. Tuesday morning, we had early start. We had an 8:30 service at Glyn Valley, a unattended funeral, the choice of the family, where no one goes, but it's all done, as I've said before, nice and respectfully. And then at 9 o'clock, we had a private funeral there as well at Glyn Valley. So both hearses was in use on that day, I tell you. And then in the afternoon, we had Lee's funeral. And Lee... Madge, I nearly said it again. But I can remember Lee from back when he was a policeman here in Wadebridge years ago. And obviously since then, he retired from the police and, they've got the nursing homes around. And we had a super service for him. I'm sure he would have loved it. One thing I know he would have loved, he loved his trains. We had the service actually in Bodmin Parish Church, and then up to the crematorium. And just as we was going to take Lee out of the hearse, you heard the toot from the Bodmin and Wentford steam train. Perfect. It couldn't have been better timing. And he would have loved that. He really would have. And it was nice to see a few familiar faces there that I hadn't seen for a long time. But it was a fantastic turnout. It really was. And then again on Wednesday, we were back Glyn Valley again for Jeff's funeral. Jeff from Bodmin there. And cool, what a turnout that was too. Chapel was full. They were standing at the back, standing outside in the waiting room. It just showed what a popular man he was. And I must admit, one thing that did make me smile was in the eulogy. And this just shows how times have changed. Because he grew up there down the bottom of Dunmere, right close to the Borough Arms, and him and his mates, they used to ride carts down the hill, down past the Borough Arms. Well, you couldn't do it today because the road is just so busy. But going back those years ago, you could actually ride your carts down. And I think they said they was going down the hill, turning into Dunmere, the Borough Arms car park rather, and perhaps taking it a bit sharp and a few cuts and bruises. But that's what life was like back then. There we go. And then after that, we had another private funeral and very well attended kind of, I suppose, would you say invitation only? I think you would really. Yeah. But down at one of our local churches, and say if the funeral's private, I never really divulge anything. But the church was full and we had the PA system outside and it rained. We was okay to start off with, but then it rained, and I did feel sorry for the people standing outside, I must admit. And then today, again, another early start at Glyn Valley at 8:35, and then back to Egglesale for Kevin's funeral. And Kevin, lovely crowd there today. I say, Madge, I ain't going to say it. I feel like I've nearly said I've known him forever. He even used to live up Glen Road years ago when we lived up Glen Road. But I'm sure he would have loved it. He really would. Big family, but also lots of friends there as well. So that was good. Apart from the fact we got wet. It rained again. And so that was my week. So now over to me interview, a Camborne boy, Steve Burrows. And I'm sure you'll love this because 'tis very interesting. I think it'll be next week's episode when he actually talks about when he was working down in the tin mine. But even this week, 'tis so interesting how he starts talking about looking for tin and everything. Well, I won't go no more because I'll spoil it. I think the best thing I can do is hand over to Steve now, and then I will speak to him directly with me little Cornish bits. So here it is. Get on, Steve. How we knocking?
Oh, knocking pretty well at the moment, Dave. I'm a bit lame on me right knee here at the moment. hobbling around, but still cracking on a bit, like, you know.
Yeah, I did see you was walking, you know, like say, hobbling a bit today. What saying did you say? You was like a crab?
Walking like a crab going jail. Or walking like 1 foot in the fur.
Brilliant. Oh, lovely. Right, well, I think what we'll do, we'll go back to, because you were Camborne boy, is that right?
Absolutely, Dave.
Yep, so talk a bit about your family first, if you like.
Well, Phil Trevino, I love this bit. I was actually born in the Red Roof Hospital.
Oh, no, was he? Yeah.
I was, but I still class myself as a Camborne.
Camborne, yeah.
Yeah. I grew up actually in Tucking Mill.
Yes, I know.
Little places between Camborne and Poole.
Yeah.
And we lived in a little lane, and quite an unusual name is a place called Scowbuds.
Right, never heard of that.
Scowbuds.
Right.
Quite an unusual name. Where the name derived from, I'm not really sure. But I grew up in my childhood there, and went to Rossgear Infant School.
Yeah.
And then progressed on to Rossgear Junior School. At secondary school, I went to Poole Comprehensive.
Right. So who was mother and father then? We'll go back to they first, if you like.
Well, my mother, her maiden name was Andrew.
Yeah.
And her father was, he was a fully trained butcher and slaughterman.
Was it right? Yeah.
Yeah. And come from Troon, he did.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't actually know my mother's father. He passed away when I was 6 years old.
Right.
In 1966.
Okay.
My granny used to say to me, your grandfather could kill a bullock and sit down and eat his dinner off him.
I'll get away.
Yeah, so she used to tell me, yeah.
Oh.
So he came from Troon.
Yeah.
And my Granny Andrew, she was called Jenkin before she was married, and she came from Hale.
Yeah, fine.
And they lived in Century Street in Camborne.
Oh, right, yeah.
And on my father's side, because he's Burrows.
Yeah.
Now, I believe my granny, she came from Bizzo.
Right.
Area. I'm not so sure on my Papa Burrows where exactly he came from, but he had a brother called Lloyd Burrows.
Yeah.
Apparently he was quite eccentric.
Was he? Yeah.
Character. And everybody nicknamed him Duke.
Did they? Yeah.
And my granny told me that he had a Shire horse, and it was called Duke. And you could hear him say, "Get up, Duke, get up, Duke."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's who you call him, Duke Burrows. And I heard a very funny story about him. He was friends with a chap I know in Carncoy, Dick Johns. He's actually called Sinclair Johns, but they call him Dick. And Dick told me, he said, we used to go up 5 Lanes horse sale with a lorry. And Duke say, we'll meet you up on the junction in the morning, 6 o'clock. I'll be up there waiting with the lorry. So anyway, got there 6 o'clock in the morning, no Duke. 6:15, Duke turned up with a very deep voice. I'm sorry I'm late, but I've just been to the bank.
Right.
He used to keep his money in the edge up Bassett Carnes in the tin up there, so his missus couldn't get all his money.
I love that.
Yeah, brilliant, like, you know. So that was my great uncle.
Yeah.
But my father was born in Tralee, in a cottage in Tralee. But when my father left school, he went to work for Almonds in Camborne.
Oh, yeah. They was a big employer, wasn't
They was, David, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he went on to drive excavators, diggers and stuff, and lorries. Up to his retirement, he went to work. He worked in the factory.
Oh, right.
He drove PAL Europe.
Yeah.
He made filters for various things, like anything from a vending machine up to spacecraft, aircraft as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll show you before you go, if I remember. I got a penknife in my office, it's a paper opener, letter envelope opener.
Oh, yes.
From Almonds group, Allman Group.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
I'll show you directly.
So my father worked there for a short while, and then
Yeah,
he worked for several local contractors who had plant, like, and you
Yeah.
drive diggers and stuff,
Yeah.
like.
So what was like Camborne like when you was growing up? Because like Redruth and Camborne now, it isn't as thriving as it used to be. Was it busy when you was young then, or no?
It was busy, but it was a lovely town, Canberra was.
Yeah.
There's lots of lovely local businesses.
Yeah.
You got Tyaks and Rice's, famous, tailors,
Yeah.
and buy some lovely clothing in there. And then you had the arcade, which was the Camel skating rink.
All right. Yeah.
That was very popular with people back in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
You had local barber shops and, like your local barber.
Yeah.
It was a busy place. It was, yeah. And obviously, especially with Holman's thriving.
Yeah.
I mean, 4:30, from Monday to Friday, the place was bustling with men leaving work.
Yeah.
From Holman's, like,
Yeah.
It was a very sad day when it went,
Definitely.
because they made all like mining equipment,
Yeah.
compressors and rock drills and
Yeah.
so what, like,
Yeah. So I don't think I asked you, did you have any brothers or sisters or no?
Yeah, I got one brother. He's 18 months older than me.
Right.
Yeah, he's called Anthony. He lives in Redruth.
Yeah.
He's married, like, he works for PAL, where my father used to work, like.
Oh, right. Yeah. So your first school then, was it a big school?
No, fairly small school.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went for infants, and then I went on junior there.
Can you remember any teachers back there or no?
There was one called Mr. Hitchens,
Okay.
and he was a real character.
Yeah.
He was always mucking about and gaming around and doing silly little jokes,
Yeah.
And if he was to point out something on the blackboard to us, he used to put a glove on the end of the ruler with the fingers pointing at what's on the blackboard, like, And he used to walk up and down the classroom, a bit like Monty Python, Ministry of Silly Walks. He used to do that sort of thing up and down the classroom. He was so funny, like,
Yeah.
But then another day you could go in and he'd be in a bit of a foul mood, like,
Right. Yeah.
But I still see him occasionally go around Camborne now. But a lovely guy. Yeah.
Oh, that's
the
good.
only one I can really sort of remember from junior school, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're at your first school. At what age did you go up to the second one then after that?
I think I was about 11, I think, when I went to secondary school in Poole.
Oh, right on. That was obviously a big school.
That's a big school, Poole Comprehensive.
So then you left school 16?
1982.
And what first job then? And what did he do?
Well,
then?
when I left school, there was like a little government training scheme with Trevenson in Poole, just across from the Cornwall College.
Right.
So I went there. You could have a bit of go at metalwork, woodwork, anything, bit of decorating or anything, just to try and learn some skills to move on with, like,
Yeah.
And I think I was there for sort of about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one day there was one of our bosses there, supervisor, he was called Jack Hawke from down Sinner. He said something about, we've got to dig a pit outside somewhere, so we're going to dig a pit. So I said, I'll go out and do it. I'll go out and pick the shovel. Well, you use pick the shovel? I said, yeah, use that.
Yeah.
I said, because I used to help father out when I was a child, when he had any building work at home, helping mix concrete, carry blocks, all that sort of thing, So I went out on the pick and shovel, and he said, you're scared of work, huh? Yeah. I said, no, I love it. I said, So one Friday afternoon, him and this other supervisor called Dougie Ireland, they come up to me, we want to have a word, we want to have a chat with you. Oh, yeah. Want a job, do we? I said, well, where? Up Bray Tin Streams. I said, all right. I said, are you interested? I said, yeah. Right. Get on your motorbike, get on the change.
Right.
We got an interview there, I think it was 4:30 in the afternoon. And the boss will be there. one of the bosses, Neville Ebsworth, he was called,
Right.
and the company was called Medway Tin. And Med was Marriott Ebsworth and Dillo.
Right.
And that's where the Medway bit come in.
Yeah.
So I went up there and had the interview. I got the job, and I went on like a youth training scheme for 12 months.
Okay.
And if I had been okay work-wise, they would have took me on full-time after the 12 months, which they did. They did take me on, and I was there for 3 years, from 82 up to 85. I think it was approximately, near bang on 3 years.
Yeah.
Because I started there in November, and we finished there in November when the tin price crashed. There was no underground workings there. It was all reclaimed mine waste.
Well, was it really?
It was all processed to extract the tin from the mine waste, some of it was from old mine burrows that had been dug out from when they dug sunk shafts.
Yeah.
Some of it was just soil. Sometimes we used to dig up marshland with a slimy dirt in the marshland. That could be full of tin as well,
Yeah, cool.
And it was all right. When I first started there, I used to go out prospecting.
Right.
Me and another guy used to go out with a pickup truck, load of clear plastic bags, pick and shovel, and we would go to somewhere and we would dig up samples, put them in a bag, write a serial number on the bag, for a sample, and we would take them back to the tin stream place, and they would process the samples in the sample room to see if there's any values in the samples,
Yeah, I get it.
And obviously, then if there was any value showing in the samples, then they would go and excavate it and haul it away,
Right.
And they used to have E. Hoopers from Fradden. They used to have their swing shovels and lorries there for hauling all the dirt away,
How many was working there then?
I can't really remember. I think it was probably about 30 odd, I think.
Was it really? Yeah.
Yeah. So for the first 12 months, I went out sampling, prospecting, and then the position came up to do shift work there. They worked 12-hour shifts, 1 week days, 1 week nights, 7 till 7. We were at 60-hour week, and it was on a rota. It was blooming cold up there in the winter, up in this valley.
I can imagine,
it was really cold, So there was 4 of us on a shift. We had a shift boss and 3 of us out working in the mill. And when we used to come in to start, one of us would go out on the Caterpillar loader to go to the stockpile and load the grizzly bin. It'd all go up the conveyor belt through the washer, and then it'll all be sifted out and it'll go on what called shaky tables.
Right, yeah.
to extract the tin concentrate out,
Yeah.
So you do a couple of hours on the machine, then you spend 4 hours in the mill. And basically what you would do, you would keep an eye on the shaky tables, so all the dirt coming out, or the tin coming off, and the tin concentrate would come off the end of the tables and go down into rubber buckets. And then once the buckets was full, we take it away, you put it on a vibrating plate, it would vibrate the water off, and then we would bag it up in 1/2 weight bags.
Yeah.
Near enough, every Friday morning, we used to have a flatbed articulated trailer, and we used to load 20 ton of tin on a Friday morning. One of our bosses here was called Joe Shuto, and Joe was mad on rugby and keeping fit. He used to push us hard, to tell you. We had a electric conveyor belt up to the back of the trailer. One would be loading these bags. There'd be several of us up there running up and down the trailer and stacking the bags. And it used to be put into fertilizer bags.
Yeah.
And this blooming old fertilizer It was pretty toxic stuff. If you had any splits in your fingers, you get in there, it didn't have sting, like, you know.
Oh.
And we used to tie the top of the bags up with teddy wires, you know.
Oh, yeah.
With a twister, you know.
Yeah, I get it, yeah.
And we used to load, like I said, we used to do 20 ton on there.
That's a hell of a lot of tin, really, isn't it? When
Yeah, it was,
you went
yeah,
going
yeah.
down, like, you know.
Yeah, we did that on, like I said, we did that Friday mornings. Yeah, yeah.
So you was there 3 years, you say?
3
then?
years,
Right.
82 to 85. Then I left there and I went working for several different building companies.
So had the tin mines actually shut by then, or no?
No, Crofty hadn't shut.
Right.
Crofty hadn't. And Wheel Chain and Geaver hadn't shut. But they did reduce some of their staff, you know, when the tin price crashed, like, you know.
Yeah.
And it never really recovered after that, you know.
So, yeah, so then you went, say, working for different firms after that?
Yeah, different firms. Did a bit of builders labouring. Worked in a few different factories, you know, a textile factory, a bacon factory, which worked for Roach Foods, that used to be.
Oh, yeah.
Well, strangely enough, the textile factory I worked in, it was called Dijon. And when Dijon closed, Roach Foods took it over, and it was a bacon factory. So I actually worked in that factory for 2 different companies.
Yeah.
Back then. So, yeah, and I worked for an engineering company. I worked at several different places over the years, you know.
All in the Camborne Redruth area, was it?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to stop for this week, because now, from next week, Steve's going on to his time down the mine. So I'm sure you'll love that, as I'm sure you've loved this episode too. So, for me Cornish word of the week, I did take a photo and put it on our RJ Bray Facebook page. As I said, we was there at Bodmin Church this week, and when we come out, there was this beautiful golden yellow leaf that had come down off the tree, obviously with autumn, landed on the bonnet of the hearse. And he was there just long enough. I took a photo, and then, because obviously the bonnet's polished, he just slid off. But I did put it on our Facebook page. It looked lovely, really. So I thought that's what I'd do. My Cornish word of the week will be the word for autumn, which is hedron. Hedron. And then for me dialect, well, you've been spoilt, really, because Steve, I think he had a couple of quotes there when we started the interview. I think Steve knows more Cornish dialect and sayings than I'll ever know. He comes out with some booties. I must ask him to tell me a few more. But I think what I'll do for my dialect of this week will be chirks. Chirks. Now, that's like cinders or ashes. And I always remember saying, if somebody was making a row when they was eating or anything, they'd say, "Cool, he's like a pig chowing ashes. He's like a pig chowing ashes." Well, there is a similarity to that. This is one that I saw from a book ages ago, where he say, "Eat a chew boiled eggs like a pig chewing chirks." I'll get it right a minute. Eat a chew boiled eggs like a pig chewing chirks. So there we are, chirks, cinders. So there we are. Oh, I've said that again. I listen to everything I say now, because I was listening back to this just now. And how many times did I say, "I must admit"? I'm going to try and cut that out too now. Right, well, there we are. And I say that a lot too. I ain't going to say no more. Just I'll see you next week. Wish you well. Do get us. Curnovis Ficken.